Thank you, Simone. That was perfect. All right. Welcome to our 11 o'clock class, ladies and gents. Talking about we're talking about a class title that my lady came up with that was brilliant, that I have failed to actually memorize. But we are
For those a few words.
Yeah, those are a few words. Yes, unfortunately, I'm in my professional mode, and so my words are coming out probably more than I would particularly like. In the SCA, when I have spoken in a court setting, in a investiture setting, a coronation setting, I have always tried to keep my words very pointed and very limited. I'll talk about why in the next few minutes. And then if folks have things they'd like to add in, if you have questions, if you have comments, please do jump in. A lot of the information that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to try to do it quickly, is going to be tried to quickly get to more real life situations so that we can talk. You had a chat message, Darlene, about the Exchequer class missing a instructor.
Okay,
Sorry, just a brief thing there
got it.
to the brain of this operation. And it looks like Seamus is heading there. Because Elsie, I should not say we, because Elsie is running a lot of this wonderful event through our personal computer. I hope I will not be getting too distracted by the information coming to her to help her run things and keep things going smoothly. Obviously, an Exchequer class is a very important class, an important part of our game in the SCA. But how to speak briefly, how to get your point across, and how to get back to doing the things that you might enjoy, or at least getting away from the limelight, which can be a very uncomfortable place to be. A couple things that I looked up. There is a myth, we like to say it as a joke, that a goldfish will have a attention span of 9 seconds. It is estimated by some websites that attention span for human beings have gone from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. But I dislike those things. I think they're more pop science. I think they're more people just joking around than actual reality. I did find a quote from Dr. Gemma Briggs um, that I actually liked, and I thought encapsulated individuals' attention span much better. I just took a chunk out of it because it was a long text, but what we can expect and those expectations and our experience directly. Oh goodness. Yep. I know in Zoom I should have my glasses on. There we go. Experience directly mold what we see and how we process information. Obviously, adults, even children, can have a long attention span, but it's going to depend on their mood. It's going to depend on the feeling of the event. It's one of the main reasons that I like to get to points quickly um, and get out. People are going to be distracted by all the wonderful things happening at events. Let them be distracted. Let them have whimsy. Let them do those things. All right, my main points. My main points. Here we go. Know your audience. I think that's very important. One of the things that I did for public speaking early in the SCA, or let's just say in the SCA, is I had the opportunities to be part of crown tournaments, and I always had words for crown tournaments for a 2-year span as I had a job. I have stood out in invocation for coronets, for tournaments, for crown. I personally would like to get to fighting. And so I tried to keep my words very brief. I tried to check in with their majesties to find out if they needed me to speak or if they had planned words with regards to the marshalate, which is what I was referencing in my speaking. But other than that, get in, get out. Everybody's there for the tournament. Everybody was there for the pageantry. And yes, as Earl Marshal buried the lead. As Earl Marshal, I had a responsibility for some of that pageantry, but there is nothing wrong with you being the pageantry that you are capable of. So knowing your audience is going to be very, very important. And for me, as much as the populace was there, my audience was the fighters. My audience was the king and queen. If you know your audience, it allows you to tailor your content, making sure you know those big points that you want to get across. I'll be honest, this next one I didn't do very much. I didn't really monitor the audience for feedback. Maybe I'm arrogant. Maybe I am just too full of myself, but I had a set idea of what I wanted to do. I went out, I did it. I got out of there to let the event keep going. We have to try to be cognizant of what people are there at the event to do. Some people might have been there to listen to me. I really doubt it. I think they may very well have wanted to hear what the king and queen said, but I'm sure just the marshal in charge, they were just waiting for the next thing, the next invocation, the next part of the ceremony. If you do know your audience, let's say you're doing a general presentation in court, know the likes of the audience, know their dislikes, know who you're speaking to. It will allow you to tailor any joke that you might say. The jokes are very difficult, and you're undoubtedly going to either annoy people with them or they're just not going to understand. But you can be able to take what you're having to say and make it more meaningful for the people there. I could spend 2 hours talking about this subject, but we're only going to be able to remember so much. So trying to come up with something pithy, 1 or 2 things, get in, get out. And yeah, I liked this one. What do people want? Or what do people like and what do people hate? You'll get attention if you hit the what do people hate portion. But you've sat in court. You've been in the sun in an invocation. You've been at a 12th night through all of the important announcements. You also know how it can just wear on your mind, wear on your ability to keep focused and be that good or bad person chatting in the background when you should or should not be out there chatting. All right, so that was me talking a lot. I'm going to take a momentary break to take a sip of water. Any comments, any thoughts on that? If not, that is fine. I'll jump to the next thing.
I do have a question in terms of working with kids, trying to get their attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you engage that performance or that audience when you're dealing with little ones and teenagers all in the same group?
You've got a couple different audiences there. I think you're going to have to pick and choose because the likes and dislikes are significantly different for, say, an elementary school student versus a high school student. That's kind of how I saw the disparity between those groups. I think you pick what's important. What is the key there? I had the opportunity to do some recognition publicly of some youth in our local area in Sinagua in the West Kingdom. And I just focused on what I was trying to make a point of. I was just focused on the kids I was dealing with, and I was dealing with high school students. And yes, I may have completely missed the younger group, but sometimes we cannot reach everyone. So it's a little bit easier to just really focus down and say, okay, I want to make this difference. I want this age group to be excited. I want this to be my purpose. Your sincerity, your belief in the righteousness, the rightness of what you're doing will actually reach a lot of other folks, is my 2 cents. And thank you very much for the question. Does anyone have a counter to that? Does anyone have hey, no, you can reach everyone and you could actually hit all targets? Because there's no way, shape, or form am I the expert child here talking about the subject.
So when you're actually going through and doing this, how do you decide what the pertinent things are? Is it just depending on what it is that you have to speak about? Like during your time when you were royalty here locally, when you would go up and speak in court, what were you using as your guideline to be the quick get in and get out?
Thank you. That's a great question. I was very lucky to have my lady take on most of the words. So I got to fight and sit in a beautiful chair and have a lot of people take me way more seriously than they should have. But what I did was actually just focus on two things the entire 6 months. I focused on positivity, I focused on joy, and I used the classic interview trick. Make sure you don't keep talking. Just make sure you get to a point. And I just leaned on those ideas. Well, I don't know, 6 months, but I guess I could say because of the prior to the rain, maybe 7 months, as we were adjusting and still doing things as Lord and Lady of the Swan. Thank you, Roy.
I'm not entirely sure this is the place to ask this question, but I'm very bad with projection. Like getting anyone to be able to hear me because I have just a little itty bitty voice.
Come to a Harold's training session.
Question.
When is that?
That is not a bad idea. The heralds in your area will have suggestions and training tools for projection, ideas on how to make sure that you can speak loudly without injuring your vocal cords, being able to pull that power from your diaphragm from deep in your torso to be able to get that information out. It's not an issue of high volume, it's an issue of amplitude so that your words can carry. And so our person who is popping in, and I'm jumping in front of them, is one of our best voice heralds in the area, and has a kingdom level job and is a wonderful member of the West Kingdom. And it's a very good point that heralds everywhere are used to projecting and making that loud noise carry. They definitely know what they're talking about. Other than that, singing. Other than that, there's nothing wrong with having a quiet voice, because if you have a quiet voice and you get everyone's attention and you say your point quickly and you say it heartfelt, it still will also carry. You need to adopt your strengths, which I think that gets us to my next point. And I apologize, I'm using evil teacher tricks on you guys, which is wait time, and I'm glad people have been speaking up. And no, this is a great question. Know your strengths. You don't need to be something you're not. I am not a bard. I do not go out and try to put words out there that are flowery. I just get to the point. I'm a science teacher. I've been doing it for many years. I just get to the facts and get out. I am not going to get an award for being a bard. I'm not going to get recognition for my my words in public, and that's fine by me. I know my strengths. My strengths are being sincere about what I need to say, and usually when I speak, I think there is a significant need for it. And as you build your renown, even a small voice can carry greatly. But there are, of course, tricks like the heralds know, and also singing tricks and whatnot. So know your strengths. This was my second big idea. And I was just talking about that. Not everyone is a famous bard. I need to make sure I keep things pointed. I need to make sure I don't get lost in trying to say something. I appreciate bards. I love bards. I also sometimes want the bards to be a little bit faster in court. So knowing what you're doing, why you're doing it, if you're there and you're supposed to be entertaining, well, yes, do the entertaining. But if you're there trying to make a point, if you're trying to sway minds, then that's where other techniques of public speaking can jump in. What are you good at? Don't try to be good at something that you're not necessarily an expert at. Be you, be the best person you can be, and you will accomplish more. It'll be easier, and it'll be natural. And I think that's one of the key things. A lot of our royalty, when they get up on that stage, when they are on their thrones, when they are in the center of attention, they are just being who they honestly are. And that rings true, and that is memorable. Let's see, how have you been? Oh, okay. Know how you've been successful at relating information. Maybe if you don't have a loud voice, maybe you have other ways of communicating. Maybe you're great at words and you know somebody that's really loud. You can write them their words. There is nothing that says you have to be that person. If you're not comfortable in the front, don't be in the front. There is someone who has that knack, who has that ability. And if you are someone who has that ability, but sometimes you feel you go too far, that things are stretched out, that's okay. I bet you know someone that says the most amazing things in the smallest amount of time. And part of that you admire, and you could talk to them and get ideas from them to help the entire organization be as strong as it can be. Let's see, what's my next point? Is what's important to you. Oh, okay. This is a good one. And again, this is my arrogance. When I was out talking in front of people, I very much, yeah. Thank you, Allison. It's important to be brutally honest with yourself. Is what's important to you also important to your audience? I think sometimes when things go long, I think when sometimes people get a little bit lost in communication in front of an audience, they've lost that important point. They've lost that key thing that they wanted to get out. So knowing what your audience wants to hear, you're telling people about this really cool event that's coming up. Fantastic. Let's keep that really cool event focused on the 3 or 4 main points that your shire, your barony, your principality, I think I got them all. I think there's one more I'm forgetting. Your kingdom, besides that one. Try to keep to those ideas. And it never hurts having a little piece of paper. Leather-bound books are a wonderful thing. Everybody uses them to hide the fact that they keep some information written down. Lastly, with regards to know your strengths, a friend of mine a long time ago introduced me to the idea of strengths, and it's become more and more prevalent in our society. And I really do like the idea. You can make your strengths stronger, faster, easier than you can try to attack your weaknesses. We all have strengths. Taking those strengths, focusing on those and applying those strengths is going to make you much happier, more successful. And I think you'll be able to get your points across faster and easier than if you try to be something that you're not. All right, that was part 2. Did that shake loose any ideas? Did that create any thoughts out of the folks out there? Give you a chance to either take a breath, walk away, grab some water, whatnot.
So I have many questions, but they're not quite at
Awesome.
the point where I think you're ready for them in your class plan. I'm not sure what your plan is, though.
Fire away. It's all good. Ask questions.
Okay, so I actually have gotten some feedback because as constable, I've done quite a bit of public speaking for announcements and things like that. So the feedback that I got was that I sometimes come across as not very authoritative because of my body language, apparently. And so I'm wondering how much you have to say about like body language within public speaking.
Okay. No, that's a great question. I really like that. One, and sadly, my first thought on that was, I love our group. Misogyny exists. I don't find you non-authoritative. I find you authoritative. I have no problem with your authority. I respect your authority.
Thank you.
Sorry, little South Park reference. But with
I got
regards
it. I was moving past.
with regards to body language, it is absolutely true. Back straight, as good a posture as you can toss out there. Head up. Those simple things can make a difference. But again, I understand that you got that feedback. I don't see it myself personally. I've seen you work. I've seen and heard your talk in court. I think you're doing fine, but everybody, Elsie also thinks you're doing fine.
I have a suggestion.
Elsie had a suggestion off screen, so she's now going to talk.
Okay.
So my suggestion for dealing with the gendered portion of it is drop your voice a little bit, a few decibels. It makes you sound more authoritative. Even if you don't change your posture, it will play on the tricks in the brains of people that are being dumbasses.
Okay.
And did you hear that? And that's a good point. And unfortunately, because our society has not had as many as we should, public, strong figures, or just public figures that were respected for the strengths that they had, that might have been representations of the non-standard cis male gender. We have a lot of folks, and of course, because we have a large age range in the SCA, we have a lot of varying degrees of wokeness, and we have folks that will get hiccups based on their experiences. But no, that's a very good point, Darlin. Thank you. The deeper voice. We all respect James Earl Jones. He's just a god, and you know that's not a bad one. That's not a bad one at all. Yep. Can you turn that off, Darlin? Go for it, Allison. If you have something.
Well, I was just going to say, if you are standing up straight and you got your head and you're projecting properly, your voice is going to drop. You hear me talking now, this is my normal speaking voice. If you hear me on the field, when I'm doing a shout for a fight, my voice drops because I'm projecting, because it's coming from down in the diaphragm, which you can't see me pointing at, but it's down, yeah. Ladies, below the bra line. Because that's where you're projecting from. Your voice, your throat's going to open up. Your voice is going to drop. And if I was to project right now, you would hate me all, you would all hate me because I would blow your speakers probably. But yes, projecting will lower your voice, and that does give you a certain perception of authority. And speaking in a lower voice, this is especially for women. Women tend to have this problem more than men do because we do get perceived as less strong, weaker because of our high voices. And when I'm trying to speak nicely, and when I'm trying to make somebody understand that I'm female and not male, I go up into this high, soft voice. But when I'm trying to be authoritative, you hear the difference. And by the way, yes, I can go into a high squeaky voice. People who have dogs have heard it.
And one of the things that we know from the wacky world of science is that those deeper notes do carry better. Those deeper notes are one of the reasons that some of our most amazing creatures on our planet can communicate over thousands of miles of distance in water. I, of course, mention our friends, the whales inside the ocean. Did you have other questions, our super constable?
So it was basically body language questions that I was wondering about, because again, I had multiple people give me feedback and I wanted to really address it. I had suggestions of head tilt and things like that. So I've been over time trying to kind of strengthen my stance, I guess you would say. And the only other like big question I had about public speaking is dealing with the total and absolute stage fright that just hits some people, depending on the audience. For talking to a group of constables, I'm totally fine. But boy, when I go to court, I feel like I'm going to vomit.
I experienced a lot of that nervousness taking some classes a long time ago. I embraced that nervousness. I remember having a speech in one of those classes talking about the rush, talking about the thrill ride that can be public speaking. You know, when you got to do something in court, hit the restroom first. It's always a classic, good piece of advice. With regards to head tilt and body language, again, I think the people that gave you advice are absolutely well-meaning. If you are comfortable, if you can find a place where you are comfortable in how you speak and where you speak, maybe speak out amongst the populace. Maybe don't be near the royalty. You can try some different things. Go out into the crowd, stand on one side or the other. Put yourself in the position where you will be comfortable or maybe more comfortable, and then and go. There was some good points in the chat that I saw very quickly. I really like the comment about talking in parent voice. Obviously, I talk a lot in teacher voice when I am doing presentations or doing something in the SCA. The individual, and then after that was, and if I've missed your comments, I apologize, I don't see them all. The deep breath can go a long way towards calming your voice and calming yourself. That deep, refreshing breath is an incredibly important trick for any situation that is stressful. That is always a great piece of advice. Thank you. Military parade ground voice. Well, you of O'Rourke, you have privilege I don't have. I can only imitate a bad movie. So, any other questions or comments? Yes, Caesar, please.
Yeah, one last thing. I do talk with my hands a lot, so I'll do a lot of, I'm going, come on, focus. So yeah, I tend to do that a lot, which is okay with the kids, but with the adults, because I also feel marshaled as well. I do tend to do a lot of this part, and I'm trying to control that, but it is kind of a little distracting, in a way.
Distracting may not be bad. Again, I really think the important thing is to embrace who you are as a public speaker, who you are as someone who's comfortable out there. We are doing this for fun. We are doing this as a game. If you are naturally an individual that speaks with more of their body than just their head, that's fine. That's you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think anyone who holds that against you is very short-sighted. And I'm sorry, I've been with a bunch of adults in the SCA, and I'm pretty sure the kids are smarter. So, and more mature. So I think, any type of hand gesture to help people along is perfectly fine. If you are going to focus on it, I would focus on just making sure that those hand gestures are presenting your idea the way you want to present it. Is it saying energy? Is it saying, we need to go quickly, we need to go quickly? There is nothing wrong with hand gestures, and they can communicate an amazing amount. And never underestimate the number of people that really can't hear that incredibly well. So those hand gestures are not a detriment. They could very well be a benefit. Awesome. Thank you guys. Some great stuff. I appreciate it. So we do have one more section. I'm very happy with myself. I did not finish this class in 10 minutes. So media training. A lot of what I have been able to benefit from has been because professionally, my wife Elsie has actually been media trained and has had to speak in front of cameras. And I just can't even imagine how that would be bad. This doesn't count because it's just Zoom. Some very quick ideas for media training. Oh, one last thing, back to the strengths, knowing your strengths. There are lots of strength finders. I just want to make sure I get back to this. There are free ones, there are paid ones. They can actually tell you some very interesting things about yourself. I am a huge fan of the strength finders that you can find either online or in books. And I have benefited, I believe, from reading books and doing a couple of those strength finders professionally. Okay, all right, media training. Sorry, I got a little bit off topic there. Media training. Know your key messages and facts. I would rehearse before I went up for a coronation, my lines. I changed my line every single time. I am so happy that the Heralds never called me to task for it because I never said the exact same thing twice. As Earl Marshal, you have lines in coronation, and often I got to be the first person to say the lines for greater officers, and it was always close to the words in the Herald's Handbook, but it was always a slight tweak. And I will say, and maybe your kingdom, maybe your area is different. If you do have set lines, if you are part of a ceremony, your emotion, your getting to it and getting it done is going to be far more important to everyone than if you get the line correct. One change of the line is not going to be noted. Well, it may be noticed by people, but for whatever reason, no one ever took me to task for me changing lines. Practice beforehand. So I've definitely benefited from practice beforehand. When I did have longer lines in courts, I would really think about what I wanted to say. I would write things down. I have read some research with regards to when you write things down, it becomes more real, it becomes more tangible. And even if you are going to just say it, having that thing written down, even if you never look at it again, it creates more reality for those words, which helps you put your desires, your information out there to the public better. Be succinct and to the point. I would elaborate on that, but I think that'd be kind of ironic. Dress for success. Okay, this one's a little bit silly, but I think it actually does matter. Now, we obviously have all sorts of different body types, but I'm not talking about form fitting, unless that's what you like. Go Italians. Late period. But if you have something that you love, if you have something that you are comfortable in, I'm wearing a chain from a squire. It means a lot to me. I'm wearing my cap of maintenance from my lady, my mantle from my lady. I am wearing my belt. Obviously, you're not going to see that, but I am wearing that belt. But it was part of me putting on who I wanted to represent today. I wanted to represent my best Pelican Heinrich to individuals so that maybe I could help a little bit, because public speaking is tricky and it is absolutely terrifying sometimes. But dressing for that success, put those clothes on. If you've got an important part to play, put those clothes on that make you feel good. Put those clothes on that remind you of the people that have supported you. Put those talismans on that make you comfortable and make you who you are. Let's see, smile. This is an old trick I learned way back in the late 90s. So I'm not going to make you do it with me, but I'll just give you an example. I'm going to get a little bit closer to my camera. So yeah, smile. Smiling is kind of funny. It has a natural way of kind of spreading to people, but maybe you don't want to smile. So all you have to do this is say the letter E. You don't even have to really move your teeth or your lips, but if you do that, if you kind of make the E sound behind your lips, it's an endorphin trick. It's a trick that is sometimes taught to teachers because we get mad a lot when we are dealing with our wonderful students. But just by doing that, it releases the jaw. It relaxes you a little bit. What I think of as this magic E is something that you can do beforehand. Even if you don't want to smile, even if you're nervous, even if you are feeling horrible, which I hope would never happen, but of course does. If you do that, if you have that little E in the back of your mouth, the corners of your mouth come up a little bit, your jaw relaxes a little bit. I believe the science is that endorphins are released in the brain, and it's something that you cannot stop. It is something that is just natural to human beings. And that can help relax you. That can help get you into that mental place that's a little bit more comfortable for you to be able to get your words across. It has been a handy. Now, if you want to be serious, I guess this goes back to our super constable. If you want to go serious and you want to be really, I'm an authoritative, as little expression as possible, actually. As loose in the mouth and jaw as possible. Am I mad? Am I happy? Actually, I'm nothing. I'm just actually trying to have a loose face. But I have found that when encountering individuals who are not respecting your authority, that looseness, that relaxedness, they then interpret you're presenting a neutral face, and then they actually do all the interpretation of your emotion while you are just staying calm. I see that you unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to throw in there?
I did. So that can be a double-edged sword, it seems, for women, because when I have zero expression, I get that I have resting bee face. So
but you know, I will say there's a time for it. Again, yeah, again, unfortunately, with different age groups, different backgrounds, we really can't control that. I think resting bitch face is a thing to cultivate and use as the powerful tool that it is. Lastly, and this goes back to an earlier comment about be loud, and be as loud as you can be. I have been in public settings where someone speaks very softly and people will quiet down to hear that. Other folks will speak loudly and people won't quiet down. So if you get the reputation of, okay, that's a good point. Thank you. An idea in the chat was add the E to the resting B face, and it may smooth things out and make it more neutral. Thank you for that comment. Thank you for that comment. Yes, be as loud as you can be. And as our awesome Harold said, if you don't necessarily have the voice from down low, you don't want to necessarily destroy your voice or tire out your voice too much so you can't enjoy the rest of the event. Bring up somebody with you that will ask people to quiet down. And just be as confident as you possibly can be. Those are my main talking points. Any comments, any thoughts, any specific questions or examples? Let's see, loosen the face, then smile without teeth. Okay, good. It just slighten the lips and removes the resting bee face. Thank you, some very good comments in the chat. Thanks, guys. Yeah, actually, that's a very good point. Sometimes saying nothing will quiet people too. I think sometimes we get in a hurry when we do public speaking, and I think we need to recognize that if we stop, make our speech a little bit slower, we can still get our point across. And it doesn't actually sound that different, but it can help us relax and it can help us be able to get our point across. Yep, and yeah, that's absolutely true. We do tend to speak very, very quickly when that epinephrine is running, when the corticosteroids are going through our system, when we are in fight or flight mode because of nervousness. So actively trying to make yourself feel like you're talking slowly, which right now I feel like I'm talking very slowly. It may or may not actually sound that slow to you. To me, I feel very slow. Yep, use of silence is very important. Yeah, no, it's very good points. Very good points.
May I add something else?
Any other comments or questions?
May I add something else from journalism? When you're writing things out, remember a page is about 30 seconds. So if you write out too much, if you think you're writing too much, a page is actually about 30 seconds.
And I think this comes back to the idea of practicing, and practicing might be private. Practicing also can be with a couple people that you trust to give you some good feedback.
I do have another point, actually. Having experienced the SCA in multiple kingdoms, there are definitely dialectical differences that can be challenging, as well as speed in speech. On the East Coast in New York, if you go to an event, everybody talks a mile a minute. It's just what happens because the culture there is a very fast speaking culture. If you go to an event in Texas, there's a lot of drawl. There's a lot of slowdown in the speech. There's a lot of buddyism, I guess. Like people want to check in with their buddies and make sure that things are going well in their speech. And here in the West, we kind of have a mixture of different types of dialects because we have such a wide range of communities. So it seems like, at least when I've spoken with groups here versus when I was speaking with groups in the East or even down in Kaid, different places have different speeds. So trying to gauge what the speed is of the majority of the people can help. And especially when speaking with older generations, slowing down becomes imperative because they have hearing aids and things like that to remember.
We had a very good comment that jumps right on top of this, which when you do speak quickly, when you are speaking in public, it makes it harder for individuals to understand. And I like the last line, which was slowing down a beat is rarely wrong. With regards to being in a different place and speaking, speak the way you speak. I would never try to adapt or change forcefully to the area that I'm in. Be you, speak your way, because that's how you have practiced communicating your entire life. If you live in an area long enough, I was in Atlantia for 2 years. My U's became quite long. I'd like to run to get some exercise. But let it happen naturally. Let it happen without worrying about it, without focusing on it, and just be you. The nice thing is, we mostly all speak the same language. I mean, that's generationally, and obviously individuals who are brilliant and are bilingual or trilingual, but we mainly can get our points across. All right, great. Anything else? Anybody else have any ideas? If I did miss any ideas that were popped up in the chat, I apologize, but thank you for, it's been an active chat and there have been some really good ideas in there. And if you, thank you, Simon. And if you would like to head back, because I do not have anything else, I've hit my 3 points. If you'd like to chat, that's great. If you'd like to head back to the central room and see some faces you haven't seen in a while, if you have a specific question and like to throw it out to the group, please do. Okay, this is a good one.
Yeah, good point out there.
You're very welcome. Let's see. And you know what? Yeah, I do like the idea that if you are the person speaking, you do have the authority. You may not feel you have the authority, but you actually are the authority at the time. If you have been recognized, you are the person, so you can feel confident in that, and you can try to bring that into yourself to help you push your point across.
Heinrich, one point I would make, I would add, sorry. One point I would add, speaking as a herald, and this is something that I was taught early in my career as a herald, is make your voice or make your face match the subject. If you're talking about something happy, be happy. If you need to do something more serious, be serious. Too often I have seen inexperienced speakers come in and they're all happy about the funeral. So that's just a thing. And learn how to transition as well. If what came before your announcement was happy, but you've got a more serious announcement, walk in happy, but then go and relax your face. It's those little things that help with public speaking. As far as Crystal, your question about stage fright, oh my God, we all got it. And some of that is you just practice and learn your method of dealing with it. The calming breath is one of them. Okay, now I can speak. You'll see me do it in court, as a herald. You'll see me do that because yeah, I'll get flustered. Even your best court herald will get flustered at some point. Your best public speaker will get flustered at some point. And it's just a matter of, okay, I can do this.
I would add on to that with regards to, let's say you are nervous. Let's say you are talking about a tragic event. Well, take your information. If you know you're going to come off as happy or energetic, well, then talk about something that makes sense in that context to be energetic about. Someone has passed. This is horrible. Oh my gosh, I'm so sad this person's gone, but I remember this time that we were together and they said this hilarious thing. And if you take your emotion and put it with your words, if you take your words and match it with an emotion that makes sense to the audience, then you're going to be fine. And it won't matter if you're a little bit awkward speaking. Match your emotion to your words as best you can. And that awkwardness probably at least will be forgiven. And you never know, those types of extemporaneous situations where you talk about a positive thing from the past about someone that you're sad to see gone, that can have a huge impact and be a lasting memory for everyone who heard your voice. And it may not have been the message you originally were planning on saying, but if they match, yeah, it'll definitely be perceived better by the audience. Awesome, guys. We got about 10 minutes before I suppose the next classes start.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Yep.